Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to some of you, and peace out to the rest of you. I want to skip the whole intro. Just hit the share button. You know why, you know who I am. So let me get started. Shouts out to attorney Dennis Spurling, BGS Ibmore, the four doctors, Hasan Johnson, Green Gorilla, Ronald Neal, and Tommy J. Curry. Because they have brought legal, historical, and statistical knowledge, substance into this black manosphere. That's the reason. BGS is like the historian. The statisticians are the four doctors. An attorney, Dennis Spurling, is the one that brings the legal knowledge, and he also brings in the psychological validation. All of them validate our humanity. All of them do. Now, the most personal touch that is brought in by attorney Spurling. And BGS, I would say, runs a very close second in terms of that, which one seems more like the uncle? Well, I mean, he even says, this is your uncle, attorney Spurling. He does remind me the most of my father. But all of them remind me of my dad in certain aspects. My dad believes in stats and studies where they exist and where they've been studied, but also knowing the methodology of the study so that you understand what a study is proving and what it's not proving. A study can disprove one thing but not prove its opposite, as an example. My dad's very good at seeing that. Just as an example. But see, attorney Spurling, today for me, earlier this morning my time, late last night you all's time, had the live stream in which he was talking about black fathers not getting credit for the success of the offspring. And that reminded me of something. If I trace my path to the red pill, colorism, as I've said in a previous one that I did back in 2019, did lead me. It was black consciousness and colorism that led me to Ibmore and the red pill. That is true. But the first exoneration of black men that I ever heard, well, that came from my father. My father said to me, we men are under pressure and you must disabuse yourself of pressure to deliver beyond your control. He was the first one to say it. This was at a time when I was being told that black men had failed and we were all kinds of failures and negative forces, and I believed it. I really thought, you got these trifling niggas in the community, and in the black Muslim community, you got even more trifling niggas. They just want to marry four wives and not do nothing. And that's what's out there. I believed it, and I didn't understand that we were to be exonerated because most of us were not these trifling niggas. Those are just the ones that make the headlines. My father was the one that exonerated us. I was under a lot of pressure to not be that dude, and I thought I was, and it was my dad that made me understand I wasn't one of them trifling niggas just because I don't have a particular income. I wasn't begging anybody else for anything. I wasn't failing as a dad. I just was raising a daughter with a mother that wanted to make sure that I never felt adequate as a father by saying, you didn't do this, and this. It didn't matter what I did. She one time said in an argument, after an argument with her father, it doesn't matter what a man doesn't do. He's always going to point at what he did. Turned out it was the opposite. She was, it didn't matter what I did as a husband and father. She was only going to point to what I didn't do. My father knew I was under this stress and pressure, even though I did not disclose to him these marital problems, but he understood the stress and pressure. And I realized now, looking back, he knew, and he was exonerating me. That means he knew I was being blamed. Oh my God. He knew I was being blamed. This is a father. He didn't butt in the business. He came with the solution. And I didn't fully understand some of the red pill pieces of the puzzle he was dropping on me, but later on I understood some more when I found the white manosphere in 2011. And that's what it was. It was a white manosphere. It was a white manosphere. They ain't gonna take no crap off Becky no more, which is understandable, but we need to forget slavery while they hold on to the grudges for 9/11. So that part of the puzzle began to fit together then. And then 2017, when I was here in the Middle East for my third year, I found this space, and then I got deeper into it as we got into 2018. And the first ones I found were Angry Man BGS and O'Shea Duke Jackson. As I learned more about them, I began to realize, okay, we've been blamed. And Angry Man was the first one I heard say, we've been blamed for everything, no matter what. And look at what they're doing. And look at who they're choosing. And he mentioned BGS, and then I found BGS and O'Shea. And BGS was bringing a historical knowledge. And he was saying, it's been this way for a long time. We black men have been utilities. And maybe that's just the way women are. He came level-headed. But both of them were speaking in the same spirit of exoneration that my dad had spoken to me. And then later on, I see that Dennis Spurling is doing the same thing, and that Hasan Johnson is bringing the stats to show that. Attorney Spurling is bringing the legal experience. Professor Hasan Johnson, Dr. Professor Hasan Johnson, I should say. Dr. Green, the Green Gorilla, the G with a PhD, Dr. Ronald Neal and Dr. Tommy J. Curry are coming with the same things. Stats and studies that exonerate us. And Edward Anderson knew a lot of black demographic statistics. So shout out to him, because he was maybe the third or fourth one I heard to exonerate us from a lot of this stuff. But then to go deeper into stats and studies, it was these four doctors I heard. It was Imam Sheikh Maulana Mufti Dwight Hayes, shout out to him, Assalamu alaikum, brother, that brought to my attention how doctors were more aware of incest-related afflictions rising amongst black people. And I say related because some of these afflictions can happen without incest, but a rise in them amongst the population generally coincides with generations of first cousin marriage, which is not legally incest in many cases, and it's not incest in Islamic law, but restricting marriage generation after generation to this has the same effects as incest. He brought that to my attention. That you ain't gonna have but a few guys out here making all these babies, and these babies are gonna wind up matching up with each other when they get older, not knowing that they're related. Because ain't enough, not men, but ain't enough fathers to go around for these babies to not be related later. Because the women only want to screw the same few dudes with this tournament mating that reflects the interest of bighorn sheep more than it does of human beings, who I might add have actually probably been on the planet longer than bighorn sheep. Yeah. So all of these so-called inferior genes that women want to breed out of men have already been bred out over time. They just keep looking for more. In any case, what I wanted to get at is that these men, shout out to them, have brought the same message that my dad was giving me in bits and pieces that I couldn't understand the big picture that matches. to the audience, to you, to us, to the masses. So shout out to them. We must get certain things out, certain information out to young black boys, as I've said. And I'm not going to exempt even those the age of Roman Spurling, 11, from this. They need it. And I'm going to tell you why we know they need it. I've said before, you got to give them this red pill knowledge. And the less their mother approves of it, the more you need to do it. And no, you ain't responsible to feed them boys unless you did breed them boys. So while we are obligated to get this message out, which their mothers would consider brainwashing, and which these ma'am dingoes and gynocrat goons would consider brainwashing and indoctrination, we are obligated to do that for the sake of men and for the sake of whatever community you want to save. The fact is, we're not obligated to feed them if we did not breed them. That's the exact opposite of the mother's interest. The mothers want you to feed them while you did not breed them and then let her do all the indoctrination. Shuck that fit. No, shuck that fit. If I'm going to feed them, I better breed them. And in all cases, I'm required to tell them the truth if I tell them anything at all. So I'm not required to let you lie to them either. So this is what puts us at war with the mothers in many cases, and aunts, grandmoms, older sisters. Now, I want to say this too, if I may. It's a sad state of affairs, but the same women and ma'am dingoes and goons that tell us that we have no business indoctrinating these boys are doing exactly the same thing to little girls who are still playing with dolls. Pay close attention, gentlemen. When the little girl is still playing with dolls and her mom takes her with her to her friend's house, meaning the mother's friend's house, or friends of both, a mother, another friend, and her daughter who's a playmate, whatever the case is, they discuss men. When they discuss men, they don't let the children out of their supervision, so they're discussing men and the manipulation of men within earshot of their daughters. That's okay when they do it. They don't mind that. When the daughters get a little bit older, maybe even not that much older, they then begin to look directly in the daughters' faces and say to them this, that, and the other, so that they can manipulate and get more out of men. Now, a similar indoctrination happens in all cultures, East, West, and anything in between. The women are together and they're supervising the girls and they're talking and, they're discussing men and how to, to get what they want out of men within reason. But in a traditional society, they may discuss that in conjunction with how to keep men, how to treat them in ways that keep them. It's not wrong to treat a man in a way that would keep him. The issue is that in the West, it is not about keeping him. It is about manipulating him and getting more out of him. Maybe then leaving him. That's where the issue comes in. That's what's wrong. They do not regret this. They do not apologize for this. They do not think anything is wrong with this. It's okay. It's normal. That's not indoctrination when they do it. That's indoctrination when men do the opposite to young boys so that they can't be manipulated and taken advantage of and either wrongfully kept or not kept at all, but rather discarded. When you teach these young boys how to defend themselves from the manipulation and resource exploitation of these women, that's indoctrination. And that's wrong in their minds, not the reverse. Understand this though, when they're having these hen conversations, I didn't say hidden, I said hen. But yeah, when they're having these hidden hen conversations, notice that even the gynocrat goons and matriarchal mandingos are not privy to those conversations because they're also being manipulated. And the women do not want these manipulated men to know they're being manipulated. Get it, gentlemen? This is why it's even more important to have these conversations with these young boys. Exactly whatever their mothers don't want them to know. Not because you hate the mother. Not even because you disrespect the mother per se, but simply because what it is that she does not want him to know is what is right for him to know and necessary for him to protect himself. It was for this reason that I never supported Kevin Samuels when he was going in on men. It wasn't even information he gave them I had a problem with. It was him blaming the men for not knowing this. I mean, if the women in your life lie to you, what you expect, and then he turned around, flipped it, and I am behind him 100%. Because now he's giving the women what they need to know. And we see how many of them act with the shoe on the other foot while they call in and pay him. We see how they act. We saw how it was when the one that went viral on World Star Hip Hop even, which I only know about because everybody told me it was on there. It's blocked where I live. That one, and I want to tell y'all about that one, by the way. That video has gone viral to the point that my friends who don't know that they don't know about the existence of Black Mind in this channel. They just know me personally. They're now aware of this video. They've seen it. Who is this dude? They're now looking up Kevin Samuels. I had to tell some of my homeboys, Dark and Black Johnson. These are their nicknames. Don't ask how they got them. I had to tell them who he was. Because my other homeboy from Atlanta sent this to our group. He sent that video where he's roasting her, telling her, you not even really being mean to her at first. He just says, look, this is what you're bringing to the table, and you're a 5, and you want a man that makes 6 figures. Look at what you're wearing right now, the makeup and the wig. How do you look without that? I look the same. Then you wouldn't have that on if you did. So see, take that all off. That's what he's going to wake up to in the morning. You're not going to get this with your 13-year-old son and your job and your looks and your age. And I'm not saying this out of hatred. I'm just saying this so that you can focus on what you can get and stop wasting your time. But you being so mean, well, get the F off my screen. That's what he was doing. And that's what is now going viral. And so my homeboy from Atlanta found this independently of my black behind and sent it to my 2 homeboys from my hometown because we all in the same group. And Dark and Black Johnson said, who is this dude? And I had to tell him, that's a man named Kevin Samuels. He used to go in on men like this till he wised up, realized men don't know this because the mothers lied to them half the time, or, a lot more than I even realized. Now he's going in and telling the women, you're delusional with your standards. You want to sit up here and be down here. He's pretty much telling them that they want to be Lois Lane and get Superman. And I'm behind him 100%. And I told my man, Black Johnson, I know I'm one-sided. I'm one-sided because the side I'm on is right. He did this to the men. I got on him, not for the content, but for the way he said it and how he blamed men for what they didn't know about women, when in fact, who's teaching men about women? Now, he's going in on these women, and that's good because these women have had women to teach them about men, and they've had men to teach them. We ain't been no mystery to them. We ain't been no mystery to them until they realize that they've lost looks and youth and this other stuff, but they ain't getting the same results from men, and they want to know why they ain't getting them. They lose what it is that attracts men, and then they start to wonder because they don't realize they've lost what attracts men. But no. So I'm for that, and I make no apologies for it. But getting back to the main topic, we got to tell these men these things, but I want to point something else out, the way that we got to tell them, and then I'm going to be done. Now, first, I'm going to tell you how I know that women are doing this, even though I'm not around them. Obviously, if there's no man around, I'm not around either. Now, sometimes I overhear it. Plus, my mother told me what they were talking about in the hair salons a long time ago. She spit that out. But I'm going to tell you how I know that it wasn't just my mother's hair salon, first off. Number one, when my daughter was younger and I was married to my American ex, her mother, a thought just jumped into my head. And we Muslims know where that thought came from, but a thought just jumped into my head. And I called my daughter in and I said, sweetheart, and at the time I worked at the same school she was going to. I said, sweetheart, does anybody at school think that I'm hiding money from you? And she said, not at the school, but mommy said that. She told grandmom, she was talking about her maternal grandmother. She told grandmom that she thinks you're hiding money. I said, oh, does grandmom think so too? She said, I think she thinks so. Okay, thank you, sweetie. I thought it was somebody at the school that thought that. She said, no, but I don't think you're hiding money, Daddy. And I told her, sweetheart, to have a place to hide the money would just cost more money. I don't have the kind of money to find a hiding place to get the money. I need each one to get the other one, and I can't find either. No, sweetie, I can't hide it. But thanks for the info. I already suspected it was her mother that thought that. Not because I was hiding it, but because there was no other logical explanation for why her mother kept being upset about money I just didn't have. Okay. She must think I'm hiding it, or she's mad at God for not supplying it. Whatever the case is. It just came to me, and my daughter right there confirmed it. Now, let me go further and bake your noodle a little bit more, black folk. That's one way I knew this was happening. Another way that I knew was that my father, shortly before I got married to my current wife, said, she's taking counsel. See, I want you to understand, son, you've made decisions about women without outside advice, because men would not discuss these things. These women have always made decisions about you after discussing it with other women, usually their own mothers and aunts, or cousins or somebody. So you no longer have to strategize by yourself. Even though you're in your 40s and you got 3 kids, from now on, you can discuss with me anyone and tell me what you know so we can help you strategize. Because if we had done this for you earlier, you would have known a lot more about the women you wound up marrying, or the 2 women by whom you had kids. Now, this is my father extending this support while I was in my 40s. This was only a few years ago. So he's pretty much sat up and said that women were only making decisions after consulting with each other. The hive mind. Now, listen closely, gentlemen. The way that he would have known that they do this is only if my aunt told him or my mother told him. He would not assume this otherwise. Somewhere, some lady that he can trust, that I can trust, told him this. So this means I got evidence from my daughter that they will discuss stuff like this in front of her. And I got evidence from my dad that he would only get from a woman that he can afford to trust, which means I can trust them. Then later I was teaching. You see, it was actually not long after that conversation with my dad I came back here. I was teaching a summer course in the evenings. And one of my better students, my man named Khalid, was early for class one day. And we were talking about marriage and family and children. And I said, you know, man, I notice here people don't wait when they marry. They spit the kids right out. Why would the husbands agree to that? And he said, it's not the husbands. He said, it's the wives. Because the wife's mother's going to tell her, hurry up and get pregnant and chain him to your leg. That's exactly what my father told me. That's exactly what I learned from my daughter. This isn't exactly what I got many ways. So this is it. We know. And then, of course, Attorney Spurling came on one day and he said, boys are raised to get out there and figure it out for themselves. Don't even stay in the house if you ain't got to go to school. Go outside and play. Girls get to stay up under older girls and older women and have this passed down to them. They start off ahead of the game by the time they even got chesticles. Boys got to figure it out. Now, gentlemen, we understand why I said what I said. I don't need a study for that. This has been observed by other people outside of myself who are trustworthy. Some may say that I'm partial. If somebody knows me personally, they may think I'm partial to Attorney Spurling because he reminds me of my father. But he only partially reminds me of my dad. He doesn't have to fully remind me of my father. He is his own person, as my dad is his own person. But this is one of the things that they've been able to come, this is a conclusion to which they've both been able to come to in common. This is it. So I wanted you to understand that before the studies and the stats come out, you need to know, and you can know with proof, that women are discussing us when we're not around. And they don't even involve the ma'am dingoes and the goons in all of these discussions, because the discussions largely involve manipulation of men. And the ma'am dingoes and the goons are also manipulated, so they can't discuss that in front of them. They can only discuss how bad these other niggas are. They ain't like you in front of these goons and ma'am dingoes. That's all. Nothing else. But see, part of the discussion is how to keep these goons and ma'am dingoes and cultivate and groom them. That's part of the discussion. You can tell them till they're blue in the face, look, you ain't gonna get a lot of respect from these men if you out here showing everything off in front of every man. You could tell them till you're blue in the face. They ain't gonna listen because they got the women's council telling them this every time ain't no men around. Girl, you gotta show a little bit to get a little bit. Show a little bit. No, you gotta give a little bit to get a little bit. No. If I got to do this for you, I'm going to get what I want. That's it. I could go into a story about I've had to use that even in my own marriage, but I'm not divulging my wife's privacy. I don't care about my own, but I ain't divulging my wife's. I'm simply saying I know it works. You got to give a little bit to get a little bit. You keep showing a little bit. Eventually, any man you ain't giving it to can be unmanipulated. Even a man you give him something to can be unmanipulated if he's told enough. Now, anyway, let's go ahead and continue on. I told you this because this is proof that we have to do the same thing for the young men. And I told you this also so you understand the hypocrisy. When his mother comes to you and says, you don't indoctrinate my child, he ain't your son, no way. You don't do all this and the other. And you say, would you mind a man being a good stepfather to him? Would you be against a man with, resources and wisdom being a good stepfather to him? No, I wouldn't. What you offering? No, the point is you wouldn't mind that, but you don't want somebody to come along and give this advice. Look, you feel perfectly comfortable telling a young girl that you don't know, not related to, and you don't raise, and you don't feed, and you don't take care of financially certain things about men, but you don't think this applies within men as well. That's where your hypocrisy comes in. If you're going to tell a young girl, don't you be out here pleasing these men, pretty much saying that, not for her own benefit, but so that you can show without actually giving. Really, that's what it boils down to. Yeah, that's why they do it. When they tell a young woman, well, don't be out here going all the way with these boys, they're not saying that because they actually care about that. They're saying that because if she's out here giving them some, then I can't just show a little bit to get the same things out these men. That's really what it boils down to. They know deep down that the woman that's actually going to be a slut is more useful than the woman that just teases. They know the actual prostitute is more useful than the stripper, unless the stripper's also selling some. Provided they're not committing robberies. They know that. They understand that. And that's really what it comes down to. They may tell their own daughters this for their benefit, for the daughter's benefit, but they tell somebody else's daughter, someone else's niece, that stuff. It's a different story. So let me get that out the way. So I'm showing you the hypocrisy of them telling you not to indoctrinate their sons while they indoctrinate anyone's daughter. That's the first thing. So anyway, now you understand that. So now we realize we need to have no bad conscience when we go and tell these young men what we need to tell them. Now I'm going to tell you one thing we got to tell these men. Many things I've said before, if you get the overall idea, there's one thing we got to include in this, and then I'm done. We already know that the hypergamy in the West is on steroids. It exists naturally, but it's on steroids in the West. That's why you got the Lois Lane Superman syndrome. And it's in both genders. We feel like we got to be Superman to qualify for Lois Lane. She feels comfortable being Lois Lane, demanding a Superman. Kevin Samuels is slapping that out of them. Props to him for doing that. It wasn't the men that needed to hear all this. They're already hearing it. They're hearing that from me. What they're hearing from him, they're hearing from me too, except I tell them in a tone that is indicative of the fact that they could not have possibly known this before because no one told them. I'm telling them in a tone that's indicative of the fact that it's the first time they're hearing it. You can't tell someone new information for the first time and fuss at them for not knowing it. That's what he was doing. That's where he went wrong with the men. Now he's telling the women, and he has every right. And notice, he starts off with a even tone, but then he tells them, okay, see, now you're not listening. And they, that's what they needed to hear. I know I'm one-sided because, like I said, my one-sidedness is right. But knowing that the hypergamy in the in the West in general is on steroids, it's way out of control. This is something to point out to these young boys, especially now because they like TV and they like comics and superheroes. Take two storylines. One is the Superman storyline. We already know about it. The other one is the Highlander storyline. Some of you know, some of you don't. Point this out to these young men. In the Superman movies, he's matched up with Lois Lane. But in the comic books, because there are many more comics than there are movies about him, they could not maintain the stupidity of matching him up with Lois Lane. Now he's with Wonder Woman. It's more realistic. She's more on his level. They're more similar. He's stronger than her, but she ain't no regular run-of-the-mill mortal woman while he has to be this godlike man. That's not realistic. It can't be sustained. It was so illogical, it didn't even last in a fiction comic series. And if enough movies are made about him, it won't last even then. And I've heard that even in some cartoons, he's already matched up with Wonder Woman. Okay, cool. You see how illogical it is. You tell this to somebody at that age, it sinks in. They go and they tell this to other guys. It sinks in at that age. Next. Take the Highlander storyline. Now, I don't know if there are Highlander comics or not. I'm not sure. I don't know if there are, I'm not sure if there are movies after the last movie that I know came out. I know about the series and I know about movies. The last movie I'm aware of is Endgame. Let me point that out first. I'm aware of the movie called Endgame. And that's where Adrian Paul plays Duncan MacLeod. And you don't have Christopher Lambert playing Connor MacLeod in this. Well, actually, I don't remember if he made an appearance or not. It doesn't matter. The point is, it's mostly about Duncan. Now, I saw that movie, and I saw a lot of the series too, because it used to come on when around the time I get home from school coming up. Let me tell you what happened even there. Connor and Duncan both immortal, not subject to death without a decapitation, always coming back from pseudo-deaths, were routinely matched up with regular mortal run-of-the-mill women. Man, get the F out my face with that BS. Always with regular mortal run-of-the-mill women. Okay? There again is just another example of the Superman Lois Lane syndrome or complex. You got to be beyond reason in order to qualify for her with her flaws. All right, now. In the movie Endgame, finally he was matched up with an immortal woman. And even then, he had to win her over because he was the one that triggered her immortality by pseudo-killing her to stop her aging process. Triggering her immortality so that she would no longer be subject to death as long as she could keep her head on her neck. And she repays him by going around joining gangs and murdering people and even killing people close to him. And finally, he wins her over and they get to be together in perpetuity to share their immortality with each other. So he's not going to grow old physically, but he gets to live a long time and accumulate wisdom and everything else, and and money and fortune. He's not going to grow old, you see, in any of the bad ways. But after being with all these ladies that are going to grow old in all the bad ways, he finally gets to be with someone that's not going to. It took a bunch of movies and a bunch of series for finally in the end for him to be matched up with some. But even then, the fictional BS could not be maintained. It had to be put in the end. So it was a double-edged sword. The good thing is that it made it into the series. The bad thing is that it didn't make it until the very end. When I say series, I mean the whole storyline. The bad thing is it didn't make it until the end of the last movie in the entire storyline between the movies and the series. We need to point these examples out to these young men so that they understand one lesson from that, and that is that this hypergamy on steroids is so unnatural that it cannot even maintain, it cannot even last long in a fictional storyline. Just like Malcolm said, they don't even have a bloodless revolution in Hollywood. That came later. It's the same thing here. God-like men only qualifying for regular run-of-the-mill mortal flawed women, that don't even last in Hollywood. Got it, gentlemen? It is very important that we include this in the message that we say to these young men, because in all honesty, if we put that out there, if you don't have a chance to tell them much of anything else, telling them that with a few links before mama jumps in and make sure you never get a chance to so-called indoctrinate a son again, that will undo a lot of the BS. Two things they need to know. Number one, even the women in your family don't want you to understand women. Number two, Superman can't stay with Lois Lane. And them Highlander immortals can't even stay with regular mortal women into perpetuity, even in Hollywood and on comics. Even in fantasies, God-like men can't just stay forever with regular run-of-the-mill mortal women. Those are the things they need to understand. Even fiction cannot maintain that fiction. Now, I don't think there's really much more I can tell you in this message right now. This was profound wisdom that even got me shaking when I was thinking about it. But I want you to sit and digest this. And think about the ways that you can best present this to some young man that you know. Because in reality, the concept of how to overturn this whole mess in which we find the West, oh, that's easy. You red pill these guys like this, they know what to do. You positively reward and reinforce the proper behaviors in women from outside the West that are not engaging in the effery. You properly negatively respond to the bad behaviors when they take on the same behaviors as the wicked witches of the West you've left behind when you get out. The concept is actually fairly simple. You no longer allow wicked witches of the West to collect rewards for these bad behaviors. That's the simple concept. But this is the way to make that difficult part of the concept in real life actually somewhat easy in real life. You red pill these men with this. If you're only going to get one shot, you red pill them with this. And you tell them where they can find more information, because they'll find it if they know where to look. You tell them this before they hit puberty. When they hit puberty, and they must pay attention to women, but they don't necessarily have to be victims of them, they will look for this as well. And they'll say, oh, okay, all right. So these Western broads have been told X, Y, and Z, and that's what they're going to act out. But you know what? These Eastern ladies, okay, all right. There's hope there. So let me start on these skills right now. And then when I'm 19 maybe even. I can then go somewhere else and do something, and I can get off to a good start. I don't have to sit up here and tolerate this crap from these broads. Because what they're dishing out is crap. And I don't have to sit up here and believe any BS, even if it's my own mother that tells me. I think I've said all that can help you out right now. I hope that one day this recording of mine will be no longer true and completely irrelevant and unnecessary. But until that time, I hope it helps out you and some young man that you can help out. Thank you for listening. The blackest hearted, blackest hearted, blackest minded, blackest man on social media signing black out. Assalamu alaikum. And black, heterosexual, non-select male power just because they don't like it. And black patriarchy until extinction or judgment day with no apologies.